Welcome to Weekly Podcast of the Week, Episode 3.
It's time for the Weekly Podcast of the Week. Every week, podcast in Weekly for the Week.
Sorry for the delay on the last episode. We had some technical difficulties, so this is our second attempt at Episode 3. But please like and subscribe for more technical difficulties. This week, my misconception of the week: the people who voted no on the CR are not to blame for the government shutdown. The analogy that I want to use to make this point is pretend the three of us are in a room together, and the temperature is getting very hot in that room, such that we need to open a window to let that cold air in. Now, Tyler is trying to figure out whether me or Druid is responsible for the temperature rising in the room. I'm trying to open the window, and Druid is holding it down for 35 days. And after 35 days, Druid finally releases his grip on the window, and I open it, and the cold air comes rushing in. Now, I want you, the viewer, to be in Tyler's shoe here and pick whether it's my fault that the temperature rose for those 35 days or Druid's fault for holding the window down for 35 days. I think it's very obvious. I think just the nature of the language that they're using, that the Democrats caved. They caved by doing what? By opening the government back up. They knew that the optics were bad for Republicans. Again, another motivation for them to continue voting no. It's obvious that they valued their leverage in negotiations above all of these issues that they were screaming about the government shutdown affecting people. The SNAP benefits, all this, the healthcare, blah, blah, blah. People aren't going to be able to get their free shit. They are the ones who voted no. It's actually very simple to me. They're the ones who voted no to open up the government. And yet it's the Republicans' fault.
The people who, like the 8 that just voted, they capitulated because, Schumer was withdrawing, they were like, we're going to make so much money from, donations through Prop 50 and these 3 prominent elections. You're not going to get a single cent if you vote to open the government before elections, basically, which is why these people went over and voted to open after the election.
And I think the fact that they voted on the same CR they voted no on 14 times, they didn't even succeed in getting a new CR to be passed in the House. It's very obvious that they valued their leverage over all of these consequences that they were screaming about. I honestly don't know how it's not the most clear and obvious fact that the people who voted no to opening up the government are the reason that the government was shut down for 35 days. So that's my misconception of the week. It's very simple. The nature of them caving by opening up the government. You guys picking up what I'm putting down here? What do you think, Tyler?
So what I'm noticing right now is the day one narrative from the Democratic Party is, we got this thing that we were asking for. We wanted a vote and a discussion on this Medicare, Obamacare subsidy running out, and we got it in December. Well, if we fast forward back 40 days, we see that was what Mike Johnson was offering the entire time. They're taking Mike Johnson's concession before the shutdown as them saying they got something out of it. What happened actually was there was an election coming up, and this was the only thing that they could really hold the government's feet to the fire because they needed 60 votes due to the Congress not really putting much through the second Trump administration. With that happening, they knew this is their chance. So they shut down the government. They used that to fire up the base. I'm looking at polling right now. 70% of Democrats, 76% of Democrats believe the Republicans were responsible for the shutdown, despite the fact that the House passed a continuing resolution and the Democrats voted against it almost, 14 or 16 times by the end of the process. They knew that they didn't get anything from it, and they gave up as soon as the elections were over. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer reached out to Trump to try to find some way to get the government reopened immediately right after the election. It was clear as day. They absolutely were accessing their leverage, and they were doing it so that they could get more votes out for close elections. Last time Jack Ciattarelli ran in New Jersey, he was this close to winning. Last time we had a gubernatorial race in Virginia, the Republicans won. Now, the last time there was this big trans scandal, they were covering up SA in a bathroom from a trans individual, and the school was covering it up and hiding it from the parents, and then they called the father a criminal and a terrorist for going down and yelling at them for covering up his daughter's SA. That didn't happen this time. This time the only controversy was a left-winger wishing there was violence and harm to come to his opponent, which is, like we've been dealing with that for 15 years, 10 years now, of Democrats just wishing all conservatives were dead or couldn't vote or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just so normal at this point. Like, nobody cared about that. It wasn't as big of a scandal. So this is how they drove their base out. They got their base all fired up, showed that they're willing to take their limited amount of power and run with it as far as they can to get anything they can out of Trump. This is how they show their base that they're doing shit. It was cynical from day one, and anyone that fell for it and still falling for it, I don't know. I feel sorry for you, man. Like, Ezra Klein wrote an opinion piece today saying when he discussed this with individual Democrats, a New York Times reporter that does interviews with individual elected representatives all the time, mostly Democrats, said when he talked to them, they were talking about opposing Trump's fascism. They didn't give a shit about this fucking Medicare thing that's going to sunset soon. They were talking about using their leverage. As Pentuple said, we're opposing Trump, signaling to their base that they had the balls and the fight in them. That's all this was for. Again, anyone that fell for it, I feel bad for you.
They just did it to get more donations, and they're going to just do the backdoor legal, semi-legal ways of just funding the next elections with the funding that they have left over from this, and they're going to just use the data that they got to just fund their grassroots fucking door knocking. The only other thing to really add is if you compare the numbers of how many people voted in 2024 to 2025, they got about half of their party to kind of turn out, which is very good for, not even a halfway election. It's like a halfway election, right? Year after the presidential election. So the question that might be interesting is if this is all they can pop out during any election, the question comes to it. They actually can go back to that 100% during the presidential, or if this is like all that's really voting for them now.
I'll challenge all the woke viewers in chat to explain to me what's wrong with my window analogy. I'll accept there's a little bit more nuance when it comes to the government, but ultimately I think it's quite simple. The people who voted no to keep the government shut down and then screamed about the consequences of that, and then ultimately voted yes, caving and then opening it up, are obviously the ones who were holding that shutdown as leverage to try to negotiate. I just don't understand how it's not that simple.
I can help your window analogy slightly. Let's say all the people in the house.
No, you guys can't open it. I refuse. You guys can't open it.
Druid
We
You guys can't do it.
Pentuple was in charge of the temperature of the house, but he had to run it by Druid first before he did anything.
And just to be clear, like 8% of Druid, if Druid was like a multiplicity and like there was like 8 Druids and like I was like, like about 50 people or so, there's about 8 of me who want to open it. Like I agree with you guys. And like one of me even who like wears a hoodie and like some shorts, like totally is coming over to your guys' side. But like
That's my boy right there.
some of them, like we just like I could live with the temperature as it is now until election. There's just some information, some news we're gonna get out, and then I think I got enough where you guys can open America now. It's the same thing that happened when the Tea Party had it, when the Republicans were the minority. It's like we're gonna do some leverage that we have. Let's talk. We didn't want to talk.
The Republicans didn't have the entire media apparatus on their side repeating political talking points like they're facts.
Yup.
Yeah. If the Democrats weren't blaming and screaming about the consequences of the shutdown the whole time, they might have had a better argument that the Republicans are to blame. But when they're the ones screaming about the consequences and saying, oh, the most important thing is that we open up the government. No, that just doesn't make any sense. And I think it shows that they treat their voters like retards. How do you weigh that contradiction and still fall for it? I don't think they'll be able to keep running with that misconception. I think they did a good job at putting the optics on Republicans during the shutdown, but now that they caved, voted for the same exact CR, and the government is now open, and like Tyler said, they didn't really get anything out of it that they didn't have already. Democrats.
The retard of the week, and this retard is Kat Abazagala. This is Kat Abazagala. This is Kat, whatever the fuck her last name is, and she's kind of screwed. Kat here, despite her claims of being oppressed by a fascist government coming after her because of her political affiliation, committed violent felonies against federal law enforcement, impeding them from doing their job. The job that the president was elected on was to deport illegal immigrants. In Chicago or somewhere in Illinois, she was pushing, beating on, attacking police vehicles, and commanding other people to do so as well. So, starting off, she went on a podcast. This is where the story kicked off. It happened months ago. But the week that we were writing the script, this kicked off with her going on a podcast. She was asked about this. She gave her spiel about how it's fascism coming after her. And then they played the tape.
So I'm not surprised at what we're seeing. It's exactly what I and my colleagues have warned Democratic leaders about for years. And part of the reason that we're here in the first place is those warnings not being heeded. But it is surreal to be the person on the indictment, especially because my name is really long.
What do you think about those charges, though? They seem really serious.
Yeah,
Conspiracy to impede or injure an ICE officer, assaulting or impeding that officer. Those are pretty big charges.
The charges, I think they're actually like slightly different, but no matter what the charges are in the indictment, I plan on pleading not guilty. And this is a political prosecution, plain and simple. It's an effort to criminalize free speech, an effort to criminalize free association, and an effort to criminalize the very act of protest. And so we're going to be pleading not guilty, and the evidence will come out in court, and I fully plan on winning.
Yeah, just to be clear, the indictment alleges that you and others, quote, surrounded a federal officer's vehicle, banged on its hood and windows, etched pig on the side, and impeded movement. Did you etch the word pig on the side of an officer's car?
I'm not speaking to the specifics of anything that's in the indictment right now, but like I said, I do plan on pleading not guilty, and the evidence will come out in court, and I plan on winning.
Okay. Well, let's watch the video of what happened that day that they are allowed. But when you see that, what do you think right now?
Tara, once again, this is my first time being federally indicted. Like I said, I plan on pleading not guilty. The evidence will come out in court, and I plan on winning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Just really quickly, I did want to ask you about just the fact that conspiracy to impede an officer is up to 6 years in prison, forcibly impeding and intimidating an officer is up to 8 years. Is that that could actually hinder your ability to serve in Congress? Are you concerned about that? Did she just sign off? Did she just leave the chat? I'm so confused. I'm sorry. I don't know what just happened.
After the tape was over, we saw Kat here say this is bullshit and walk away, because that's what happens when you actually have proof against these fucking people. Kat here has quite the history. She is running for political office on defunding ICE, soft on crime policies, transgender sanctuary, pretty much every leftist talking point that separates them from moderate liberals like myself. Every single one she doubles down on. Going deeper into her history, she was the person that wrote the Media Matters hit piece on Republican DAs, and also on Elon Musk, 2 separate hit pieces that got them sued. They had to settle outside of court. Pretty much every stance that she has, she's just a crazy person. She should probably be in a straitjacket, but at the end of the day, she's running for political office despite facing 8 years in federal prison, and her party does not care. They're endorsing violence against the police that they've been doing for months now, because they don't like the federal law that 13 states are actively working to ignore. I don't see it as any sort of rational thought. It's absolutely retarded that people here illegally should get to stay and push out people that are not here illegally, that we should be able to assault federal officers following federal law because you don't like the president. It's just all retardation across the board. It's all based off of lies, and at the end of the day, when she goes to prison, she's going to learn that shit the hard way. Take that, retard. Yeah, so what do you guys got here for this broad?
So I think it's interesting that these are the same people that when they're in power are all about the rule of law. Nobody's above the law. It's the most ironic slogan that they've ever used at this point, because these people want to constantly obstruct and interfere with federal law enforcement, which is a crime. I've seen this law misused. These are not cases where this law is being misused. They are actively impeding, and this is what the law is for. I've seen it used against people who are merely filming police, who are standing too close to the police, who are essentially doing First Amendment audits, and they're getting charged with interference. And these people think that standing in, blocking, putting scratches into the car as well, another crime, by the way, vandalizing these vehicles, which, funny enough, in the interview she did, she would not even address or deny, which makes me think that she is the one who did it. These people are engaging in that crime. And these are the same people that scream above the law when they're in power. I think it's ironic. I think it's hilarious. I think it's certainly retarded. And it's kind of funny just to see it. Actual Justice Warrior, I saw his video on this and how she appealed to her stature. I'm just a little baby, 5'1" girl.
What I find hilarious about this is that all of these people will argue that they're feminists. They'll say, oh, we want equal rights, equal treatment of men and women. But suddenly, when Kat actually gets charged in the same way that any man would be charged for obstructing law enforcement action, it's, oh, she's such a little baby girl. She's such a little baby. Oh my God, 5'1". Guys, has a 5'1" person ever committed a crime? Oh my God, it's on video, but she's 5'1". Look at her in her little club dress. Oh, guys, 5'1". She's 5'1". I don't know if you guys know that, but Kat Abu Ghazaleh, she's 5'1", totally innocent.
I'm just a little girl, as though you can't commit this crime if you're too small, or, you know, that she can't be blamed because there were 15 other people with her committing the exact same crime. And perhaps they got away with it. That doesn't have anything to do with whether she's guilty or not. You can be speeding on the highway. I've seen someone go up to the judge and say, I was going the flow of traffic. I was going 15 over, but so was everybody. And the judge got pissed. Because guess what? It doesn't matter. You're speeding or you're not. It doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. It doesn't matter that you're the one who got pulled over. It doesn't matter that you're the one who got charged with this crime. You were committing this crime. And it's unfortunate. And you know what? Nobody's above the law.
British cigarette of the week is not a single British cigarette of the week.
It's a whole bundle of facts.
Here we have the entire state of California. Demographics 2019, so it's about six years old, but still appropriately showing why there's a bunch of facts in the entire state. Because there's a lot more men in surplus than there are of women. So can't entirely blame us, but, you know, the entire state gets smoke because of this little thing called Prop 50 passing. It's a disgrace. It's gerrymandering against a Texas redistricting, which happened because Joe Biden's administration brought a suit against Texas, and Texas lost, and now Trump is now saying, hey, Texas, you got to redraw to come into appropriate compliance with this statute, and California has thrown up a hissy fit because if Republicans really wanted to get down and dirty, we could add about 20 seats. And from this picture, we can see that this is the current district map, I guess now non-current district map, because Prop 50 actually passed. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish, up to 8 Republicans in the House. This basically takes out all Republicans in LA and leaves us with 3, which are these 3 big ones: San Bernardino, SoCal, bumfuck nowhere, which includes Death Valley and the Sierras. Tahoe is a toss-up, which is crazy because this is all up here solid Republican, and they just cut it all the way down into North Bay area. Like, this is just ridiculous. You can't even, if I'm not mistaken, get through the top of this down to any of this little panhandle unless you go through this district. Unless you go all the way along the coast, which is like small towns, honestly. There's no federal highway. This is why everyone gets the smoke. The 9 million people who voted for Kamala, obviously Kamala won the state, they lost 3 million votes along this election. We could possibly have the case where they've still lost votes because they're getting everyone on their side to come out to vote, and they won't be getting any more, but we'll see. More people vote in presidentials. And I guess the one people who are not our British SIGs is the Dillon Law Group, as a Republican, and the Republican Party files suit against the House maps. But we'll see if they actually go anywhere, because it's going to be a rough uphill battle. Election law always is, as to why California is a bunch of facts. And this week's facts of the week.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, there is some fairness here that the GOP kind of did start this fight. Texas got sued a few times for the redistricting map, but after the 2024 election, they tried to take the turn in Hispanic voters from 2024 and incorporate it into their map that they drew in, that supposedly drew in 2021. So they were updating their maps after the 2024 election. That being said, prior to the 2024 election, or after the 2024 election, we saw that 34% of California voted Republican, but they only have about 15 to 17% representation in the state house, the state senate, and the federal house. They are already gerrymandered out with that special election commission. Now, politics, people switch sides all the time. The conservative party, my entire life, was the GOP for small government, for conservative principles, conservative values, etc. And now Trump is not that. He is a post-conservative right-winger where he tends to use government like his opposition did, that Republicans never did because they wanted to be the principled ones. And some people like that, some people hate it, some people see it as acceleration, whatever. That's the party changing over time with different leadership. What we saw here was Gavin Newsom passed something, Gavin Newsom bragged about it, Gavin Newsom attacked the other side for doing the thing that he was above because they had this independent commission handling their gerrymandering, they were so much better, and then Gavin Newsom reversed it, going back on everything he said for a political narrative.
Really, I like independent commissions, okay? Yeah. But beyond my own personal views, when you came out with this, I thought, that's a big swing. I don't know what's going to happen politically. Just as a political move, the polls were against you. Yep. Schwarzenegger was against you. Yeah. Good governor groups were against you.
Yeah, that's right.
And ultimately, I didn't know it was going to be.
I mean, the first poll was 38%, just to underscore that. And again, because I, like many, agree with you, support independent redistricting. But you can't do it state by state with one arm tied behind your back. You can't unilaterally disarm as other people are not playing by the rules. Donald Trump and Republican governors across the country, governors not just in Texas, but you're seeing what happened in Missouri. You see what happened in North Carolina. Obviously, what's going to happen in Indiana, likely, and then Florida. They're not screwing around. They're consolidating power. And we were sitting there, and I think Donald Trump did not expect what Californians did. He thought we would try to win an argument by writing an op-ed.
If it was a different person that came in and said, look, what Gavin Newsom did at the time was great, it doesn't fit today's political context, that's one thing. But Democrats are out there right now with one of the most gerrymandered states before the new map, saying Republicans are evil because they gerrymander, while working on gerrymandering their biggest state worse than any state in the union right now. They are constantly doing the things they're accusing the other side of doing, and that's what we've noticed a lot through Trump. Trump is accessing government as if he was a Democrat. He is being liberal with how laws are read. He's not being a conservative at all. He's using the pardon power the same way Bill Clinton and Joe Biden did. George W. Bush had no scandalous pardons in his tenure.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you say that he's using it the same way Biden did, Biden handed out preemptive pardons to people who were never even charged yet. Has Trump done that even once?
He's using pardons in the same spirit that Biden did, pardoning political allies and not giving that same preference to political adversaries. Though Biden did them preemptively and Trump did them after people. Well, no, because Eastman's still in court. But at least they were charged with something. Biden just pardoned people that didn't even have charges against them yet. So there was a little bit of a reach with Biden, but Trump did it in the same spirit, where George W. Bush never did that. There's not a single pardon on George W. Bush's list. He refused to pardon Scooter Libby, who was Dick Cheney's chief of staff, because it would have looked bad. So if anything, the principled conservatives are out now, and now we have people using government as it's intended.
I don't know that I agree with that, though, because being a political ally of the president doesn't make you ineligible for a pardon. Because you donated to a president doesn't make you ineligible for a pardon. And the examples that I've seen personally of this, like one of them is a crypto guy that was pardoned. And I actually looked into that, and I felt that it was a valid use of the pardon. We're looking at an evolving space. We're looking at money laundering laws that were written on the books before crypto was ever even mainstream at all.
I agree.
So
I
these
agree,
are
you know?
situations many of the times, and I would be curious, maybe we can look into them after this, and maybe some people can put some in the comments, but I'd be curious which pardons we think Trump is pardoning because they're allies, as opposed to having
John
a legitimate
Eastman.
reason. I'm sorry?
John
Santos.
Eastman.
Which one?
Yeah. He said
Santos.
I said John
Oh,
Eastman.
Well, to be fair,
John Eastman is totally innocent, and he should be completely absolved of all disbarment charges as well. And
Well,
and the Supreme Court of California should also
Most
drop
the
all of
charges
those.
are on the state level, so they can't really go after him or they can't really pardon him for things. But he's pardoned a lot of his allies.
but wait, hang
And
on.
all the
George
jailers-
Santos. Let's dig into the George Santos one because I don't know.
This one's
a ton
fun.
of this, but what was George Santos? By the way, George Santos, free George Santos. All right, free my boy. I'm glad he's out. He wasn't pardoned, wasn't he? Didn't he have his sentence commuted or whatever? Was he
Oh
pardoned?
yeah, he commuted the prison sentence of
That
Santos.
was a
I mean, same.
commutation.
But it does just say that you still did the thing, but you just get the reduced sentence. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
I
still
would
same
say
power. It's still the same power.
What George Santos was charged with and put away for is something that I think, in theory, he was put away because he was a political enemy of the people that put him away. So you can say that Trump pardoned, commuted him, if we want to treat that as the same thing, because he's an ally. But that's also the same reason he was charged with these crimes that we could probably charge a lot of people in Congress for doing. Do you disagree with that?
Not the identity theft. Wire fraud, definitely. But Santos did something really weird in his identity theft, which kind of made him crumble like a house of cards, which is why he was found out, like, super obviously.
I do think there's a distinction to be made between commuting a sentence and pardoning someone. And also,
Either or.
when it comes
Jared
to Biden,
Kushner's father.
well, I don't know anything about that one, so I'll leave the door open. I'll leave the door open if people want to put in comments, and I'll read it, or I'll do some research on some specific cases if they come up. As far as the pardon power being abused, and I know Tyler already sort of recanted the Biden comparison. Look, you can agree or maybe disagree with the justification for some of these pardons. I think a lot of them at least have some sort of justification, whether you agree with it or not. There's really no justification for giving a preemptive pardon. That is literally a get out of jail free card to give to your political allies. And I don't think Trump has done that. Whether there's a legal argument, I mean, dude, I knew people in law school that were helping write pardon requests for the DC sniper kid. Like, I mean, people are always submitting these and they always have some sort of reasoning or logic behind them. Doesn't mean that they're inherently good arguments or that I agree with them or that I think they're right. And I don't think the DC sniper is ever going to be pardoned or have his sentence commuted. But I would be curious to actually look into those case by case, whereas with Biden, there's really no justification for using the pardon power to grant a get out of jail free card to your political allies. And I would also push back on the idea that because you're a political ally, that the optics matter more important than the justification behind the pardon power. The pardon power has a very legitimate use. There's a reason we gave that pardon power to the president. And in a lot of these cases, I think it is fair to use. It is something that the president has discretion to do. He's the head of the executive branch. He's the top law enforcement in the nation. And actually, I didn't even disagree necessarily. I felt that Biden misused the pardon power, but that is, in theory, within the purview of the power that we give to the presidency. This is why it's so important who we choose to elect the president. That's why it's so damaging when you give somebody like Biden the power of the presidency. The president has great power. He is not one of three co-equal branches. They have checks and balances, but these are not equal branches. The executive is intended to be an energetic executive. He essentially is supposed to be a king that has checks on him. And I know people are going to hate that because of the whole No Kings protest that we just saw, even though they're now asking the king, please give me another bowl of soup.
I would describe it closer to an emperor at this point, and like it was originally supposed to be a king, but honestly, the powers of the president have become such, and the powers of America have become such that it's closer to an imperial presidency now rather than just a simple king.
Thank you all for watching episode 3. Please like and subscribe to all of our channels. We'll see you next week on the weekly podcast of the week that's weekly and is definitely weekly.
It's time for the weekly podcast of the week.